Now, welcome back to the Baseball Hut. I do a lot of searching on Google a lot of times, and I came across an interesting article about the New York Mets. This is from FoxNews.com. And I think this might be what the problem is with the Mets. Um, Headline, Ex-MLB Star chides Mets over lack of veteran leadership. The Mets have struggled a bit in May. Now, the Mets, since this article came out, took 2 out of 3 from the Rays. Jason Kipnis, a two-time All-Star whose MLB career spanned the then Cleveland Indians and Chicago Cubs, called out the New York Mets and Francisco Lindor for their lack of leadership. Mets moved to 21-23 on the season Wednesday night with an 8-7 victory against the Tampa Bay Rays in extra innings. On Tuesday, Kipnis had some choice words for the Mets and a few of his former teammates, including Lindor and Carrasco. And I'm going to play a short clip, and I'll come back and say what the other things he said.
Ooh. Well, you played with Lindor. Is he a leader?
I'm going to repeat it again. All those veterans and no leadership.
All those veterans and no leadership, Kipnis said, on foul territory. When A.J. Pierzynski asked whether Lindor was a leader, Kipnis doubled down. Now, they played together in Cleveland. They played together as part of that 2016 American League pennant team that lost to the Cubs. Quote, I'm going to repeat it again. All those veterans and no leadership. If everybody is a veteran there, you're kind of just under the assumption that everybody's taking care of their business and going about the things the right way. You kind of need someone to be those bumper pins kind of on each other where people start getting out of line a little bit. It helps keep people in order, on track, and focused on the same thing. Everybody gets a little comfortable because there's all veterans, and you don't have to worry about what you're doing because you can do no wrong. You kind of forget that little being on edge, and when you're a young guy and you're like, oh, I don't know if a veteran saw me, I shouldn't be doing this. You lose that should I be doing the right thing mentality. So I've been very consistent about the trade originally that the Mets made for Francisco Lindor. I was not a fan of the move because I was very nervous about the Mets, again, doing a big trade with the Cleveland franchise. We have, and I don't like using history as a precedent for not doing certain things, but the Mets had made 2 big trades prior to this, and they got burned with it. The first trade was trading Jeff Kent and Jose Vizcaino for basically a burned-out, worn-out Carlos Baerga. They didn't get any kind of offensive production out of him. He was good defensively when the Mets had him through the 98 season, but he was a shell of himself as a player. Then a few years later, they made this big blockbuster trade with Cleveland for Roberto Alomar, and Robbie Alomar was done. He was completely done as a player, and the Mets had to trade him within a year and a half of him being here. It was so bad that the fans just didn't want to deal with him. He was not the Hall of Fame player that we believed that we were going to get when he arrived here in that big trade. And now Francisco Lindor. Now, I was very reluctant to make the move because I felt like, why go down this road again? They traded two young players, one I was a fan of and one I wasn't a fan of. I was not a fan of Ahmed Rosario because I felt that they probably rushed him a little bit to get to the major leagues, and his skill set was not as smooth as it probably should have been. He didn't get on base enough. He didn't walk enough. But I was very uptight that they traded Andres Jimenez because I felt that he was going to be a star player defensively, offensively, and that's what happened. He became an all-star last year. He's one of the best young players in the American League. And they traded 2 other players, but I was just looking. Those guys haven't really amounted to anything. But Lindor has come here. Before the Mets gave him a chance to play here, they were very quick to sign him to a 10-year deal without knowing how he would handle it here with the Mets, and in New York in particular. The first year was very contentious because Lindor, quite frankly, did not handle the pressure here. He didn't handle the booing well here. He thought everything was going to be hunky-dory like it was in Cleveland, where everybody loved him and stuff like that. All he had to do was smile. But we learned very quickly that he did not like the booing, and it got to a point that when the Mets made the deal for Javier Baez, before the trading deadline in 21 that he was very uptight about how he was booed. And that's where this sort of thing with the thumbs down came from. He was part of that. Now, Baez was basically jettisoned out of here because of that, for the most part. I know the Mets had offered him some kind of contract, but I think they kind of felt that he was not going to work out here. But Lindor, off the first year, did not handle himself well at all. He did not handle himself good at all. So that was a warning sign that there was a problem early on. Because if you're a leader, you're not going to show your dismay to the fans. That doesn't really fly anywhere, specifically in New York. Now, last year he had a good season, but when September rolled around and they needed him to produce, he did not have a good September, along with Pete Alonso. Now he had a good year last year, but he did not have a good September. His September was terrible. And the Mets, with only 2 games over 500 in the month of September, he was absent during the games against the Braves. He did very little other than the one game against the series against the Padres. When the Mets needed him, he was not there. Now, he's had a very strange 2023 because he has driven a lot of runs. He's gotten runs in spurts. He's got a lot of doubles. He's got some home runs. But his OPS is a little over 700. His on-base percentage is like 320, 319. That is not great. His OPS since 2019 has been under 800. That 800 is considered excellent. Now, the Mets have been batting him third, and I think him batting third is just not, I don't think he's a 3-hitter at this point. Maybe it was a few years ago, but he's not a number 3 hitter, and he doesn't get on base enough, in my view, to be so high in the lineup. Now, the Mets are going to keep him batting high in the lineup, because he's got a big contract. He does hit home runs. He does drive runs in. But this thing by Jason Kipnis is important because this leadership, I think that's been the sort of the underlying issue, I think, with him in particular, is that he's a great guy. He's a great family man. But in terms of on the field, in terms of in the clubhouse, it seems that he is kind of not quite leadership, quality that you want, because if you have a former teammate saying that he has shown no leadership qualities, that tells you a lot. And he played with him for a few years as a young player in Cleveland. Now also Carlos Carrasco, who was the other part of this trade, his 2021 with the Mets was a disaster. Now 2022, he won 15 games, he pitched pretty good. But the one thing we learned about him, and he's pitched terribly this year. He's had all kinds of injuries, but that's not an excuse for anything. If he doesn't have it in the first inning, he doesn't have it throughout the whole game. So that's a problem with Carrasco. Now, Carrasco's supposed to pitch tonight. Now, Kipnis said he has no leadership ability. So you understand 2 players that are supposed to be important in that clubhouse. There is something missing in terms of your leadership. Now, this is something I wasn't looking for. This is something I Googled, and I don't even know who anybody else is talking about. I don't know who else is talking about this. I couldn't tell you. I posted that little clip on the Baseball Hut too, and you can see it in the community. But I haven't seen anything about the fact that there's no leadership in that clubhouse. And you can't rely on the manager. You need a player, and it always has to be an everyday player. Is Brandon Nimmo that guy? I don't know. Because he holds himself accountable. That's the first step to being a leader. But is he a leader in terms of, the ball club? I don't know. But the fact that a former teammate of Francisco Lindor is bringing this up should put up a lot of red flags for everybody. It does with me at this point. And I was not a fan of the trade. And the Mets have him for another, 8 years after this? And his numbers aren't going to get any better. He might have 1 or 2 more years where they're really great years. But I hate these long-term deals. I really do. But you let me know what you think about this video. Please subscribe to the Baseball Hut. Leave comments in the comment section. Let me know what you think about this lack of leadership from the Mets. That might be the biggest problem. That they are such a veteran team. They just sort of, like what Kipnis said. Who knows? But you let me know in the comment section. And thank you for watching. And please subscribe to the Baseball Hut. Thank you, and I'll see you later.